Showed it to Rachel. She said it was a glitch, but her eyes were wide. I didn't tell her about the dreams me in the farmhouse, the phone ringing, a shadow in the dining room. I drove to McMinnville, January 18, 2025. The farmhouse was empty, the rental listing still active. I knocked, no answer. The barn had fresh scratches on its door, 3 lines, shallow but clear. I contacted Paul Reed, the forum moderator. He said the phone might be a conduit tied to Clara's grief, calling out to anyone who stayed. He'd heard of the Grayson place, said locals avoided it. I found a 1,975 property record. Evelyn Porter bought the farmhouse from a Grayson cousin who left Oregon after a fire in the barn, no cause listed. In February, I got another voicemail, same number, time-stamped February 9, 2025, 2:31 a.m. Static, then, "We miss you." I moved my desk away from the window, started sleeping with the lights on. I quit the history group, deleted my posts. But last week, May 7, 2025, a package arrived, postmarked McMinnville, no return address. Inside was a phone cord, coiled and rusted, with a tag, Grayson Farm. I burned the tag, locked the cord in a box. I hear ringing now, faint, at night, even when my phone's off. I don't answer. I never will. Mirror reflects a missing face. The mirror showed nothing. I was there. In a dusty Wisconsin boarding house, my reflection vanished. Something else appeared. My name is Owen Mitchell, and this is the story of the weekend in November 2024 that broke my sense of reality. It was Friday, November 8, 2024, around 3:00 p.m. When I pulled into the gravel lot of a boarding house in Baraboo, Wisconsin, a quiet circus town north of Madison. The sky was low, heavy with clouds that threatened snow, the air biting at 25 degrees. I'm a 36-year-old carpenter from Milwaukee, and I'd been working nonstop, building custom cabinets for a condo project. My brother, Tyler, was supposed to join me for a weekend of hiking in Devil's Lake State Park, but he canceled last minute for a work emergency. I decided to go anyway, craving solitude. The boarding house, booked through a site called Badger Stays, was a sagging Victorian from the 1880s with a turret, chipped gray paint, and a sign that read Rosewood House. The host, Dorothy Klein, a widow in her 70s, left a key under a porch mat and a note. "Don't touch the mirror in room 3. I was in room 3. I figured she meant it was fragile. The drive from Milwaukee took 2 hours, along I-94, past dairy farms and billboards for cheese curds. My pickup truck rattled as I parked, the house looming against a field of stubble corn. I grabbed my duffel bag, a thermos of coffee, and a pack of Leinenkugel's Red Lager, a Wisconsin staple. Inside, the house smelled of mothballs and varnish. The foyer had a creaky staircase, a coat rack with a single scarf, and a chandelier that flickered when I flipped the switch. Room 3 was on the second floor, a small space with a single bed, a dresser, and a full-length mirror on the wall, its frame carved with roses, the glass clouded with age. I locked the door, checked the window latched tight, overlooking the cornfield, and dropped my bag on the bed. The quilt was heavy, patched with faded squares. The note about the mirror seemed odd, but I didn't touch it. I spent the afternoon exploring. The common area had a fireplace, cold and unused, with a stack of logs beside it. The kitchen was shared, with a gas stove and a fridge containing a lone jar of pickles. A parlor had a piano out of tune and a bookshelf with brittle mysteries from the 60s. I lit the fireplace in the common area, the flames casting a warm glow, and sat with a beer, planning my hike. My phone had 1 bar, enough to check the weather snow by midnight. I turned it off, wanting to unplug. The mirror in room 3 stayed in the back of my mind, its glass catching the hallway light as I passed. At 6:22 p.m., I noticed the mirror. I was in room 3, unpacking my hiking boots when I glanced at it. My reflection was there, but faint, like I was standing in fog. I stepped closer, my boots scuffing the rug. The mirror showed the room bed, dresser, window, but I was barely visible, a shadow where my face should be. I touched my cheek, felt my beard, my skin. I was there. The mirror wasn't. I blinked, and my reflection snapped back, clear as day. My heart raced. I laughed, a shaky sound, and blamed the beer, the dim light. I covered the mirror with a spare sheet from the dresser, tucking it over the frame, and went downstairs. I ate a sandwich ham on Rhine, the parlor, the fire crackling. Snow started at 8:00 p.m., soft flakes tapping the windows. At 8:47 p.m., I heard a creak, like a footstep, from the second floor. The house was empty, Dorothy's note saying no other guests were booked. I grabbed a fire poker, its iron cold, and climbed the stairs. Room 3's door was ajar, though I'd locked it. The sheet was on the floor, the mirror uncovered. My reflection was there, but my eyes were wrong, too wide, too dark, staring when I didn't. I backed out, slammed the door, and wedged a chair under the knob. I recorded a voice memo on my phone, time-stamped November 8, 2024, 8:50 p.m., describing the mirror, the creak, my voice unsteady. I stayed in the common area, poker in hand, fire roaring. At 10:13 p.m., a hum came from upstairs, low and mournful, like a hymn. It lasted maybe 15 seconds, then stopped. I checked the chair at room 3's door still in place. I recorded another memo, time-stamped 10:14 p.m. When I played it back, the hum was there, with a faint whisper, "Look." My skin prickled. I checked the locks, front and back, and the windows, all secure. The snow was heavier, piling against the porch. At 11:59 p.m., I saw it. A face in the parlor window, not mine, pale and eyeless, pressed to the glass. I swung the poker, but it was gone, just snow and darkness outside. I recorded again, time-stamped November 9, 2024, 12:01 a.m., my voice shaking. The whisper in the playback said, "See me." I didn't sleep. I sat by the fire, poker clutched tight, eyes on the staircase. At 2:37 a.m., footsteps paced above, heavy, circling room 3. They stopped after 5 minutes. I checked the chair moved an inch, the door still locked. Dawn broke at 7:05 a.m., the snow a foot deep. I went to room 3. The mirror was cracked, a single line from top to bottom, my reflection split. Behind me, in the glass, was a figure, tall and thin, no face, just a blur. I turned, nothing there. I took a photo, time-stamped November 9, 2024, 7:07 a.m., and packed my bag. I was done. I drove to Baraboo, found a diner called The Driftless, and asked the cook, a man named Ray, about Rosewood House. He knew it, said it was built by a circus family, the Warrens, in 1886. Their daughter, Lillian, vanished in 1899, last seen in room 3. The mirror was hers, a gift from a traveling performer rumored to be cursed. Locals avoided the house, called it Lillian's mirror. I showed Ray the photo. He went quiet, said the crack wasn't there when he cleaned the house in October. I emailed Dorothy, attaching the photo and memos. Her reply came Monday, November 11. Mirror's old, don't touch it, no refunds. I didn't argue. Back in Milwaukee, I dug into the house's history. The Sauk County Historical Society had records. The Warren family, Charles, Mary, and Lillian, lived in Rosewood House from 1886 to 1900. Lillian's disappearance at age 14 was reported in an 1899 Baraboo News Republic article with no leads. A 1927 police report noted a guest hearing footsteps in room 3, dismissed as pipes. I found a Wisconsin paranormal blog run by a woman named Ellen Hart. She wrote about haunted mirrors in Baraboo, including one that showed faces not there tied to a lost girl. No address, but the details matched. I posted on a Wisconsin history forum asking about Rosewood House. A user, Circus Trail, messaged me. They'd stayed in room 3 in 2020, saw their reflection fade, heard whispers from the mirror. They left after one night, found scratches on their backpack, 3 lines like nails. Their account was deleted 2 days later. I checked Badger Stays. The house was still listed, with a review from a guest named Anna, posted November 15, 2024. Quaint, but room 3's mirror is unsettling. I messaged her, no reply. Her profile was gone by November 18. In December, I got a text from an unknown number, time-stamped December 5, 2024, 1:46 a.m. It was a photo of the mirror, the crack wider, a pale face in the glass, eyeless, no message, just the image. I traced the number. It was a landline registered to a Baraboo funeral home closed since 2009. I didn't respond. I showed the photo to Tyler. He said it was edited, but he wouldn't look at it twice. I didn't tell him about the dreams me in room 3, the mirror empty, a hand on my shoulder. I drove to Baraboo, December 20, 2024. The house was empty, the Badger Stays listing gone. I knocked, no answer. The cornfield had fresh tracks, not mine, leading to the porch. I contacted Ellen Hart. She said the mirror might be a portal tied to Lillian's spirit trapped seeking others. She'd heard of Rosewood House, said no one stayed in room 3 long. I found a 1983 property record. Dorothy Klein bought the house from a Warren heir who left Wisconsin after a fire in the turret. No cause listed. In January, I got another text, same number, time-stamped January 12, 2025, 2:03 a.m. Another photo, the mirror shattered, the eyeless face clearer, smiling. I moved, left Milwaukee, took a job in Chicago, but the dreams followed. Last week, May 8, 2025, a package arrived, postmarked Baraboo, no return address. Inside was a mirror shard, rose-carved, with a note, "Lillian knows you." I burned the note, buried the shard. I hear whispers now, faint, at night, in my new place. I don't look in mirrors. I can't trust what I'll see. Clock ticks backward at night. The clock reversed. Time felt wrong. In a creaky New Hampshire inn, the night stretched forever. Something was counting. My name is Ryan Foster, and this is the story of the weekend in October 2024 that I can't explain. It was Friday, October 4, 2024, around 4:00 p.m. when I arrived at a small inn called the Lantern's Rest, just outside Conway, New Hampshire, a tourist town nestled in the White Mountains. The sky was a bruised purple, heavy with autumn clouds, the air crisp at 45 degrees. I'm a 33-year-old park ranger from Manchester, and I'd been patrolling trails all summer, dealing with lost hikers and bear sightings. My girlfriend, Lauren, was on a work trip to Burlington, and I wanted a quiet weekend to sketch the fall foliage. The inn, booked through a site called Granite Escapes, was a 2-story colonial from the 1790s with white clapboard, a steep roof, and a chimney puffing smoke. The host, Clara Vaughn, a retired schoolteacher, left a key in a brass lantern by the door and a note. "Don't wind the clock in the parlor." I shrugged. Old places have superstitions. The drive from Manchester took an hour and a half along Route 16, past lakes and mountains ablaze with red and orange leaves. My Jeep crunched over the inn's gravel lot, the only vehicle there. I grabbed my sketchbook, a duffel bag, and a pack of Shipyard Pumpkinhead Ale, a New England fall classic. Inside, the inn smelled of wood smoke and lavender. The foyer had a narrow staircase, a coat rack with a wool shawl, and a grandfather clock in the parlor, its pendulum still, the face engraved with Roman numerals. My room, number 4, was upstairs with a 4-poster bed, a quilt that smelled of cedar, and a window overlooking a maple grove. I locked the door, checked the window secure, the glass fogged with evening chillend, dropped my bag. The note about the clock seemed trivial, probably about noise. I spent the evening settling in. The common area had a fireplace, logs already burning, and a dining table set for one. The kitchen was stocked with tea and a loaf of bread, the fridge humming softly. The parlor was cozy, with a velvet sofa, a bookshelf of faded novels, and the grandfather clock, its hands stuck at 3:0, whether AM or PM, I couldn't tell. I lit a second fire in the parlor, sipped a beer, and sketched the room, the clock's brass glinting in the firelight. My phone had no signal, the mountains blocking reception, so I left it off, embracing the disconnect. The inn was silent, save for the fire's crackle and the wind rustling the maples outside. At 7:14 p.m., the clock ticked, a single heavy talk like a heartbeat. I froze, my pencil hovering over the sketchbook. The pendulum was still, the hands unmoved. Old clocks settle, I thought, gears shifting with the cold. I stood, walked to the clock, and peered at the face. The hands were at 3:0, but the second hand twitched, backward, just once. I stepped back, my boots scuffing the rug. The fire dimmed, though I hadn't touched it. I laughed, a nervous huff, and returned to my sketch. At 7:29 p.m., it happened again. Talk, talk, talk. 3 ticks, slow and deliberate, the second hand jerking backward. I grabbed my phone, recorded a voice memo, time-stamped October 4, 2024, 7:30 p.m., describing the ticks, my voice low. The clock stopped, the parlor silent. I moved to the dining room, away from the clock, and ate a sandwich turkey on sourdoughby candlelight. The wind picked up, rattling the windows, leaves scraping the glass. At 9:06 p.m., the clock chimed, a single deep gong echoing through the inn. I dropped my sandwich, the plate clattering. The clock hadn't chimed before, and it was unwound, the key missing. I ran to the parlor, flashlight on, poker from the fireplace in hand. The hands were at 2:59, backward from 3:0, the pendulum swinging, though no one had touched it. I stopped it with my hand, the brass cold, and the chiming ceased. I recorded another memo, time-stamped 9:07 p.m., my breath audible. When I played it back, there was a whisper, faint, behind my voice. Keep going. I checked the inn, every room, every door. The kitchen was empty, the bedrooms locked, the basement door bolted. I was alone. I unplugged the parlor lamp, dimming the room, and sat by the fire, poker across my lap. At 11:43 p.m., the clock ticked again, faster, a staccato rhythm, the hands spinning backward, 2:58, 2:57, 2:56. I shone the flashlight, the beam shaking, the pendulum swung wildly, the clock's face gleaming like it was lit from within. I recorded a video, time-stamped 11:44 p.m., panning the clock, the hands blurring. The ticking stopped, the hands froze at 2:55, but in the video, a shadow moved across the clock, tall and thin, though I stood still. My stomach churned. I covered the clock with a blanket from the sofa, tucking it tight, and retreated to my room, locking the door. I didn't sleep. I sat on the bed, poker in hand, sketchbook forgotten. At 1:22 a.m., footsteps creaked in the parlor, slow, circling where the clock stood. They lasted maybe 3 minutes, then stopped. I recorded another memo, time-stamped October 5, 2024, 1:23 a.m., whispering about the steps. The playback caught a low hum, like a chant, with the whisper, "Stay." The wind howled, the maples thrashing outside. At 3:00 a.m., the clock chimed again, muffled under the blanket, 5 gongs, each heavier than the last. I checked the door locked, the chair I'd wedged under the knob unmoved. Dawn broke at 6:45 a.m., gray and cold. I went to the parlor. The blanket was on the floor, the clock's hands at 2:50, backward again. I took a photo, time-stamped 6:47 a.m., and packed my bag. I was leaving. I drove to Conway, stopped at a diner called Redstone Grill, and asked the waitress, a woman named Beth, about the Lantern's Rest. She knew it, said it was built by a clockmaker, Samuel Hale, in 1792. His wife, Abigail, died in the parlor in 1801 during a fever outbreak. The clock was hers, a wedding gift, never removed. Locals called it Abigail's time, said it acted strange on fall nights. I showed Beth the photo. She paled, said the hands never moved when she visited in September. I emailed Clara, attaching the photo and memos. Her reply came Monday, October 7. Clock's decorative. Don't wind it, no refunds. I didn't respond. Back in Manchester, I couldn't shake it. I searched online. The Carroll County Historical Society had records. The Hale family, Samuel, Abigail, and their son, Ezra, lived in the inn from 1792 to 1805. Abigail's death certificate, dated November 1801, listed fever wasting. A 1802 diary entry digitized mentioned the clock's odd ticking after her death, blamed on grief. A 1954 police report noted a guest hearing chimes at night in the parlor, no cause found. I found a New Hampshire paranormal blog run by a man named Thomas Gray. He wrote about haunted clocks in Conway, including one that ticked backward, tied to a woman's death. No address, but the details matched. I posted on a White Mountains history forum asking about the Lantern's Rest. A user, Granite Ghost, messaged me. They'd stayed in room 4 in 2021, heard the clock chime at night, saw the hands move backward. They left after one night, found scratches on their suitcase, 3 lines, like scratches from a tool. Their account was deleted 2 days later. I checked Granite Escapes. The inn was still listed, with a review from a guest named Emma, posted October 10, 2024. Charming, but the clock's eerie. I messaged her, no reply. Her profile was gone by October 13. In November, I got a text from an unknown number, time-stamped November 6, 2024, 2:19 a.m. It was a photo of the clock, the hands at 2:45, a faint shadow behind it, tall and blurred. No message, just the image. I traced the number. It was a landline, registered to a Conway post office, out of service since 2010. I didn't respond. I showed the photo to Lauren. She said it was a prank, but her voice shook. I didn't tell her about the dreams me in the parlor, the clock ticking, a woman's hand on the pendulum. I drove to Conway, November 22, 2024. The inn was empty, the Granite Escapes listing still active. I knocked, no answer. The maple grove had fresh scratches on a tree, 3 lines, deep and uneven. I contacted Thomas Gray. He said the clock might be a marker tied to Abigail's spirit counting something lost. He'd heard of the Lantern's Rest, said locals avoided the parlor. I found a 1968 property record. Clara Vaughn bought the inn from a Hale descendant who left New Hampshire after a fire in the attic. No cause listed. In December, I got another text, same number, time-stamped December 8, 2024, 1:55 a.m. Another photo, the clock's hands at 2:40, the shadow clearer with long fingers. I moved, left Manchester, took a job in Portland, Maine, but the dreams followed. Last week, May 6, 2025, a package arrived, postmarked Conway, no return address. Inside was a clock key, brass and dented, with a tag, Lantern's Rest. I burned the tag, locked the key in a safe. I hear ticking now, faint, at night, in my new place. I don't keep clocks. I don't trust time. Door opens to empty room. The door opened. No one entered. In a lonely Colorado lodge, something crossed the threshold. It wasn't human. My name is Mason Reed, and this is the story of the weekend in September 2024 that I can't unsee. It was Friday, September 6, 2024, around 3:00 p.m. when I pulled up to a rustic lodge just outside Estes Park, Colorado, a mountain town at the edge of Rocky Mountain National Park. The sky was clear, a deep alpine blue, but the air was cool, about 55 degrees, with a breeze that carried the scent of pine. I'm a 35-year-old wildlife biologist from Denver, and I'd been tracking elk populations for months, buried in data and grant proposals. My friend, Alex, was supposed to join me for a weekend of hiking, but he backed out for a family wedding. I went anyway, needing the mountains to clear my head. The lodge, booked through a site called Mountain Haven Rentals, was a log cabin from the 1920s with a stone chimney, a slanted roof, and a porch overlooking a valley. The host, Henry Walsh, a local outfitter, left a key under a rock and a note. Keep the spare room door closed. It's storage. I figured it was cluttered, maybe unsafe. The drive from Denver took 2 hours, along Highway 36, winding through canyons and past meadows dotted with aspen trees turning gold. My Subaru Outback crunched over the lodge's dirt driveway, the only car in sight. I grabbed my backpack, a sketch pad for field notes, and a cooler with Coors Banquet, a Colorado classic. Inside, the lodge smelled of cedar and ash. The main room had a massive fireplace, a leather couch, and a dining table scarred with knife marks. The spare room, off the hallway, had a heavy oak door with a brass knob, locked, as Henry's note implied. My bedroom was upstairs, with a pine bed, a wool blanket, and a window facing the peaks. I locked the front door, checked the back, and dropped my gear. The note about the spare room didn't bother me. I was here for the trails. I spent the afternoon unpacking. The kitchen had a cast iron stove and a fridge that rattled when it kicked on. The living room had a bookshelf with dog-eared Field, Stream magazines from the 80s, and a radio that only caught static. I lit the fireplace, the logs catching fast, and sat on the couch with a beer, sketching a map of tomorrow's hike. My phone had one bar, enough to text Alex I'd arrived, but I turned it off, craving quiet. The lodge was still, save for the fire's pop and the wind whistling through the valley. The spare room door stayed shut, its knob glinting in the hallway light as I passed to the kitchen. At 6:38 p.m., the door creaked. A slow, grinding sound like wood scraping stone. I paused, my beer halfway to my lips, the fire casting long shadows. The spare room was down the hall, out of sight. Old houses shift, I thought, especially in the mountains. I stood, grabbed a flashlight from my backpack, and walked to the hallway. The door was closed, the knob unmoved. I tried it locked, no give. I pressed my ear to the wood. Nothing, just the wind outside. I laughed, a tight sound, and went back to the couch. But my eyes kept drifting to the hallway, the door's outline barely visible in the firelight. I ate dinner-canned chili heated on the stove in the living room, the radio hissing faintly. The sun set at 7:15 p.m., the valley plunging into darkness, stars sharp overhead. At 8:52 p.m., the door opened. Not a creak, but a deliberate swing, the hinges groaning loud enough to drown the fire's crackle. I grabbed the poker, its iron heavy, and ran to the hallway. The spare room door was wide open, the room dark, no light inside. I shone the flashlight, the beam cutting through dust motes. The room was empty, bare walls, plank floor, no furniture, no storage, just a single window, latched shut. My breath fogged in the cold air. I closed the door, locked it, and wedged a chair under the knob. I recorded a voice memo on my phone, time-stamped September 6, 2024, 8:53 p.m., describing the door, my voice shaking. I stayed in the living room, poker in hand, fire roaring. At 10:27 p.m., footsteps shuffled inside the spare room, slow, dragging, like boots on wood. The chair held, the door shut. I recorded another memo, time-stamped 10:28 p.m., the footsteps faint but clear. When I played it back, there was a whisper, low and guttural. "Come in." My skin crawled. I checked the locks, front and back, and the windows all secure. The night was still, no wind now, the valley silent. At 11:59 p.m., the door rattled, a sharp jolt, like something pushed from inside. The chair slid an inch, the knob twisting. I gripped the poker, my knuckles white, and recorded a video, time-stamped September 7, 2024, 12:01 a.m., panning the door. The rattling stopped, but in the video, a shadow moved across the door, tall and hunched, though the hallway was empty. My stomach twisted. I didn't sleep. I sat by the fire, poker clutched tight, eyes on the hallway. At 2:14 a.m., a hum came from the spare room, like a low chant, lasting maybe 20 seconds. I recorded again, time-stamped 2:15 a.m., my voice barely a whisper. The playback caught the hum with a faint laugh, sharp and cold. Dawn broke at 6:30 a.m., the peaks glowing pink. I checked the spare room. The chair was on the floor, the door ajar, the room empty as before. On the floor, scratched into the wood, were 3 lines, shallow but precise, like claw marks. I took a photo, time-stamped 6:32 a.m., and packed my bag. I was done. I drove to Estes Park, stopped at a coffee shop called Kind Coffee, and asked the barista, a guy named Nate, about the lodge. He knew it, said it was built by a trapper, Josiah Burke, in 1923. His son, Elias, disappeared in the spare room in 1935, age 10, during a storm. The door was locked, no trace found. Locals called it Burke's Gap, said it felt wrong. I showed Nate the photo. He frowned, said the scratches weren't there when he hiked by in August. I emailed Henry, attaching the photo and memos. His reply came Monday, September 9. Rooms for storage. Keep it closed. No refunds. I didn't argue. Back in Denver, I couldn't let it go. I searched online. The Larimer County Historical Society had records. The Burke family, Josiah, Martha, and Elias, lived in the lodge from 1923 to 1937. Elias's disappearance, reported in a 1935 Estes Park Trail Gazette, mentioned no signs of entry or exit. A 1948 police report noted a guest hearing footsteps in the spare room, dismissed as animals. I found a Colorado paranormal blog run by a woman named Lydia Crane. She wrote about haunted thresholds in Estes Park, including a door that opened to nothing and everything tied to a lost child. No address, but the details matched. I posted on a Rocky Mountain history forum asking about the lodge. A user, Trail Wraith, messaged me. They'd stayed there in 2022, heard the door open at night, saw scratches on the floor the next day, 3 lines. They left after one night, found scratches on their backpack matching the floor. Their account was deleted 2 days later. I checked Mountain Haven Rentals. The lodge was still listed, with a review from a guest named Claire posted September 12, 2024. Cozy, but the spare room's creepy. I messaged her, no reply. Her profile was gone by September 15. In October, I got a text from an unknown number, time-stamped October 7, 2024, 3:02 a.m. It was a photo of the spare room door, ajar, a shadow spilling across the floor, long and twisted. No message, just the image. I traced the number. It was a landline, registered to an Estes Park ranger station, out of service since 2011. I didn't respond. I showed the photo to Alex. He said it was a hoax, but he wouldn't look at it twice. I didn't tell him about the dreams me in the spare room, the door swinging wide, a hand reaching from the dark. I drove to Estes Park, October 25, 2024. The lodge was empty, the rental listing still active. I knocked, no answer. The valley had fresh tracks, not mine, circling the porch. I contacted Lydia Crane. She said the door might be a crossing, tied to Elias's spirit, stuck, pulling others in. She'd heard of Burke's Gap, said locals avoided the lodge. I found a 1972 property record. Henry Walsh bought the lodge from a Burke heir who left Colorado after a fire in the attic. No cause listed. In November, I got another text, same number, time-stamped November 9, 2024, 2:47 a.m. Another photo, the door wide open, the shadow clearer, with fingers like branches. I moved, left Denver, took a job in Boulder, but the dreams followed. Last week, May 5, 2025, a package arrived, postmarked Estes Park, no return address. Inside was a brass key scratched with 3 lines and a tag, Burke's Gap. I burned the tag, buried the key. I hear creaks now, faint, at night in my new place. I don't open doors after dark. I don't trust what's behind them. Lights flicker with strange pattern. The lights pulsed. They weren't random. In a remote Arizona cabin, something sent a message. It wasn't friendly. My name is Ethan Walsh, and this is the story of the weekend in August 2024 that I can't forget. It was Friday, August 2, 2024, around 5:00 p.m., when I drove up to a weathered cabin near Payson, Arizona, a small town in the Mogollon Rim country. The sky was a fiery orange, the sun dipping behind pine-covered hills, the air warm at 80 degrees but cooling fast. I'm a 32-year-old high school history teacher from Phoenix, and I'd been grading summer school papers until my eyes burned. My cousin, Derek, was supposed to come for a weekend of fishing in Tonto Creek, but he got stuck covering a shift at his bar. I went alone, needing the quiet. The cabin, booked through a site called Rim Retreats, was a 1-story A-frame from the 1950s with a tin roof, a sagging porch, and a single bulb hanging over the door. The host, Vernon Cole, a retired forest ranger, left a key in a rusted coffee can and a note. Lights act up sometimes. Flip the breaker if needed. I figured it was old wiring, nothing serious. The drive from Phoenix took 2 hours, along Highway 87, climbing from Desert Scrub to Ponderosa Pines. My Honda CR-V jolted over the cabin's dirt track, the forest closing in. I grabbed my fishing gear, a backpack, and a cooler with Blue Moon, an Arizona go-to. Inside, the cabin smelled of pine and dust. The main room had a stone fireplace, a plaid couch, and a kitchenette with a flickering fluorescent light. My bedroom was small, with a twin bed, a patched quilt, and a window facing the creek, its water glinting in the dusk. I locked the front door, checked the back, and dropped my gear. The breaker box in a closet by the kitchen was a tangle of wires, but the switches looked fine. Vernon's note didn't worry me. I'd dealt with faulty lights before. I spent the evening settling in. The kitchen had a propane stove and a sink that dripped unless you twisted the faucet hard. The living room had a radio stuck on a country station and a shelf with old Arizona Highways magazines. I lit the fireplace, the logs hissing, and sat on the couch with a beer, flipping through a magazine. My phone had no signal, the forest too dense, so I left it off, enjoying the solitude. The fluorescent light in the kitchen buzzed, flickering once, but stayed on. I ignored it, chalking it up to the cabin's age, and sketched a fishing plan for the creek. The night was quiet, save for the fire's crackle and crickets outside, their chirps echoing in the trees. At 7:43 p.m., the lights pulsed. 3 quick flickers, then steady like a signal. I paused, the magazine slipping to my lap. The fireplace bulb, the kitchen fluorescent, even the porch light all synced, dimming and flaring together. Power surge, I thought, or maybe a storm brewing. I checked the window, no clouds, just stars. The flickers came again at 7:50, 9 p.m., 5 pulses, faster, in a pattern. Short, short, long, short, long. I stood, grabbed a flashlight from my backpack, and checked the breaker box. All switches were on, no trips. I flipped the main breaker off, then on. The lights steadied, but my pulse didn't. I recorded a voice memo on my phone, time-stamped August 2, 2024, 8:0 p.m., describing the pattern, my voice calm but clipped. I ate dinner jerky and an appline, the living room, the radio off, the fire low. The air cooled, the creek's murmur louder through the open window. At 9:26 p.m., the lights pulsed again, 7 flickers, a new pattern. Long, short, short, long, short, short, long. I shone the flashlight around the room, the beam steady, but the cabin lights danced, casting shadows that seemed to shift when I didn't move. I recorded a video, time-stamped 9:27 p.m., panning the kitchen and porch. The lights stopped, but in the video, the shadows lingered, forming a shape tall, jagged, like Antlerson the wall. My throat tightened. I turned off the lights, relying on the fire and flashlight, and sat on the couch, a poker in hand, eyes on the ceiling. I checked the cabin, every corner, every door. The bedroom was empty, the closet bare, the back porch locked. I was alone. At 8 p.m., the lights turned on, though I'd left the breaker off. They pulsed, 9 flickers, a complex rhythm I couldn't follow. I ran to the breaker box, the switches still down. The air felt heavy, like before a storm, but the sky was clear. I recorded another memo, time-stamped 9 p.m., my voice shaking. When I played it back, there was a hum, low and electric, with a faint voice, "Watch us." My skin prickled. I unplugged the kitchen light, yanked the porch bulb, and piled logs on the fire, the glow my only defense. I didn't sleep. I sat by the fireplace, poker clutched tight, flashlight sweeping the room. At 1:47 a.m., footsteps crunched outside, circling the cabin, slow and deliberate, like boots on gravel. They stopped by the porch, then started again, fading into the trees. I recorded a memo, time-stamped August 3, 2024, 1:48 a.m., whispering about the steps. The playback caught a faint laugh, dry and sharp, not mine. Dawn broke at 6:15 a.m., the creek sparkling, the forest still. I checked the porch, no footprints, just pine needles and dust. But on the door, scratched into the wood, were 3 lines, thin and deep, like a blade's mark. I took a photo, time-stamped 6:17 a.m., and packed my bag. I was leaving. I drove to Payson, stopped at a diner called the Rim Cafe, and asked the server, a woman named Carla, about the cabin. She knew it, said it was built by a miner, Amos Tate, in 1952. His daughter, Lena, died there in 1964, age 12, in a fire that spared the cabin but burned the shed. Locals said the lights acted strange after, like she was signaling. They called it Lena's flicker. I showed Carla the photo. She went quiet, said the scratches weren't there when she delivered firewood in July. I emailed Vernon, attaching the photo and memos. His reply came Monday, August 5. Lights are old, breakers are fine, no refunds. I didn't respond. Back in Phoenix, I couldn't shake it. I searched online. The Gila County Historical Society had records. The Tate family, Amos, Ruth, and Lena, lived in the cabin from 1952 to 1964. Lena's death certificate, dated March 1964, listed smoke inhalation. A 1965 newspaper clipping reported light disturbances at the cabin, blamed on faulty wiring. I found an Arizona paranormal blog run by a man named Victor Salas. He wrote about haunted lights in Payson, including a cabin where flickers formed patterns tied to a child's death. No address, but the details matched. I posted on an Arizona history forum asking about the Tate cabin. A user, Rimwalker, messaged me. They'd stayed there in 2021, saw the lights pulse at night, felt watched. They left after one night, found scratches on their cooler, 3 lines like the door. Their account was deleted 2 days later. I checked Rim Retreats. The cabin was still listed, with a review from a guest named Rachel, posted August 10, 2024. Rustic, but the lights are weird. I messaged her, no reply. Her profile was gone by August 13. In September, I got a text from an unknown number, timestamped September 4, 2024, 2:33 a.m. It was a photo of the cabin's porch, the bulb pulsing, a shadow with antler-like spikes in the frame. No message, just the image. I traced the number. It was a landline, registered to a Payson gas station, closed since 2007. I didn't respond. I showed the photo to Derek. He said it was fake, but his hands shook. I didn't tell him about the dreams me in the cabin, the lights flickering, a figure outside with jagged shoulders. I drove to Payson, September 20, 2024. The cabin was empty, the rental listing still active. I knocked, no answer. The creek bank had fresh scratches on a pine, 3 lines, sharp and uneven. I contacted Victor Salas. He said the lights might be a beacon tied to Lena's spirit, signaling for help or something worse. He'd heard of the Tate cabin, said locals avoided it. I found a 1,979 property record. Vernon Cole bought the cabin from a Tate relative who left Arizona after a fire in the forest nearby. No cause listed. In October, I got another text, same number, time-stamped October 8, 2024, 1:50, 9 a.m. Another photo, the kitchen light pulsing, the shadow closer, its edges sharp. I moved, left Phoenix, took a job in Tucson, but the dreams followed. Last week, May 4, 2025, a package arrived, postmarked Payson, no return address. Inside was a light bulb, cracked, with a tag. Lena's flicker. I burned the tag, buried the bulb. I hear buzzing now, faint, at night in my new place. I don't trust the lights. I keep them off. Welcome to Midnight Mysteries. Let's begin. Whispers call from empty basement. I heard whispers. The basement was empty. In a creaky old house in rural Ohio, something spoke from below. I was alone, or so I thought. My name is Ethan Caldwell, and this is the story of the weekend in April 2024 that I'll never forget. It was Friday, April 5, 2024, around 3:00 p.m. when I pulled into the driveway of a 2-story farmhouse just outside Chillicothe, a small town in Ross County, Ohio. The sky was gray, heavy with the kind of spring clouds that threaten rain but never quite deliver. I'd found the house on Vrbo, a rental platform, listed as a historic retreat for anyone looking to escape the city. I was a high school history teacher in Columbus, burned out from grading papers and parent-teacher conferences. My wife, Jenna, was visiting her sister in Pittsburgh, so I decided to spend the weekend alone, maybe work on a novel I'd been tinkering with for years. The house, built in 1892, had peeling white paint, a wraparound porch, and a basement that wasn't mentioned in the listing. The host, a woman named Diane Miller, left a key under the mat and a note. "Keep the basement door locked. It's unfinished." I didn't think much of it. Old houses have quirks. Before we begin, tell me where are you listening from and what time is it there? The drive from Columbus took an hour, mostly along Route 23, past fields of new corn and faded barns. The house sat on 5 acres, bordered by a thin line of maple trees and a gravel road that led to nowhere. The nearest neighbor was half a mile away, their mailbox barely visible through the haze. I parked my Honda Civic, grabbed my backpack, and stepped onto the porch. The boards groaned under my boots. and the air smelled of damp earth and budding lilacs. Inside, the house was chilly, with high ceilings, scuffed hardwood floors, and furniture that looked like it hadn't been moved since the 1970s. A floral sofa, a rocking chair, a dining table with 6 mismatched chairs. I locked the front door, checked the back door, and dropped my bag in the master bedroom upstairs. The bed had a quilt that smelled faintly of mothballs, and the window overlooked the empty fields. I spent the first hour exploring. The kitchen had a gas stove and a fridge stocked with a single bottle of ketchup. The living room had a fireplace, cold and unused, with a stack of dusty logs beside it. Upstairs, there were 3 bedrooms, one with a crib that looked older than me. The basement door was in the hallway, a heavy oak slab with a rusted deadbolt. I tried the handle, out of curiosity. Locked, just as Diane's note said. I shrugged and headed back to the living room, where I set up my laptop on the dining table. The Wi-Fi was spotty, so I tethered my phone, opened a blank document, and started typing. The novel was a historical mystery, set in the 1800s, but my mind kept wandering. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you notice every sound. At 7:22 p.m., I heard the first whisper. It was faint, like a breath against glass, coming from the hallway. I paused, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The house was old, probably just pipes or the wind slipping through a crack. I got up, walked to the hallway, and stood by the basement door. Nothing, just the hum of the fridge in the kitchen. I laughed, shook my head, and went back to my laptop. But 10 minutes later, it happened again. This time, it wasn't just a sound. It was a word, soft and muffled, like someone speaking through a wall. Stay. My skin prickled. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and checked the hallway again. The basement door was still locked, the deadbolt unmoved. I pressed my ear to the wood. Silence. I told myself it was my imagination, maybe the stress of being alone in a strange house. But I didn't open the door. I moved my laptop to the kitchen, closer to the back door, just in case. The whispers didn't come again that night, but I couldn't focus. I closed my laptop at 10:00 p.m., made a peanut butter sandwich, and sat on the sofa, scrolling through my phone. The cell signal was down to 1 bar, and the weather app predicted rain by midnight. I checked the locks again, front and back, then headed upstairs. The bedroom was colder than the rest of the house, the quilt barely keeping me warm. I left the bedside lamp on, a 40-watt bulb that cast a weak glow across the room. At 11:47 p.m., I heard it again, whispers, clearer now, coming from below. Not one voice, but several, overlapping like a crowd murmuring. I sat up, my heart racing. The sound was coming from the basement, through the floorboards. I grabbed my phone, recorded a 10-second clip, and played it back. Static, then a faint, unmistakable word, stay. My hands shook as I saved the file, time-stamped April 5, 2024, 11:48 p.m. I didn't sleep. I sat on the bed, phone in one hand, a pocket knife from my backpack in the other. The whispers stopped around 1:00 a.m., replaced by a faint tapping like footsteps on concrete. It went on for maybe 5 minutes, then silence. I stayed awake until dawn when the first light filtered through the window at 6:15 a.m. I checked the house, starting with the basement door. Still locked, no scratches, no signs of tampering. The rest of the house was empty, the crib upstairs untouched, the kitchen unchanged. I played the recording again. The word stay was clearer in the morning light, but there was something else, a second voice, fainter, saying what sounded like, don't. I packed my bag, ready to leave, but curiosity stopped me. I wanted answers. I emailed Diane at 7:03 a.m., attaching the audio file. I asked if anyone had reported strange noises. Her reply came at 9:12 a.m. Old houses creak. Basement's just storage. Enjoy your stay. I wasn't convinced. I drove to Chillicothe, 10 minutes away, to a coffee shop called Paper City. The barista, a guy named Tyler, knew the house. He said it belonged to the Harper family in the 1900s who lost 3 kids to typhoid in 1898. The basement was used as a sick room during the outbreak. He'd heard rumors of noises, but nothing specific. I asked about Diane. Tyler said she was a realtor, lived in town, but he didn't know her well. I bought a coffee, sat in my car, and searched online. The Ross County Historical Society had digitized records. A 1901 census listed the Harper family, William, Eliza, and their surviving daughter, Clara. The 3 deceased kids, Amelia, James, and Thomas, died in March 1898, aged 7, 9, and 12. No mention of a basement, but a 1903 newspaper clipping reported a fire in the house contained to the lower level. The cause was unknown. Back at the house, I hesitated. It was 11:30 a.m., and the sky was still gray. I could leave, but I'd paid for 2 nights, and part of me needed to know what was happening. I unlocked the basement door, using a key from a hook in the kitchen. The deadbolt groaned, and the door swung open to a dark staircase. The air smelled of mildew and something sharper, like rust. I used my phone's flashlight, descending 13 steps to a concrete floor. The basement was small, maybe 20 by 20 feet, with bare walls and a single light bulb hanging from a cord. There were boxes stacked in one corner, labeled Christmas and books, and a rusted water heater in another. Nothing else. No furniture, no windows, no signs of life. I tapped the floor with my boot. Solid. I recorded a video panning the room, time-stamped April 6, 2024, 11:47 a.m. As I turned to leave, I heard it. A whisper, clear and close, from the corner with the boxes. Stay. I spun, my flashlight shaking. Nothing. Just the boxes, the bulb, the empty walls. I ran upstairs, slammed the door, and locked it. I didn't leave. I should have, but I stayed, telling myself I'd record more evidence. That night, Saturday, April 6, I set up my phone on a tripod in the hallway, aimed at the basement door. I started recording at 9:00 p.m., left the lights on, and sat in the living room with my knife. The whispers started at 10:13 p.m., louder than before, a chorus of voices, some high, some low. I checked the camera. The door was closed, but the handle twitched just once, like someone testing it. I stopped the recording at 10:20 p.m., saved the file, and played it back. The voices were there, saying stay over and over, mixed with don't and something new, a child's voice saying help. My blood ran cold. I grabbed my bag, ready to bolt, but the power cut out. The house went dark, the hum of the fridge gone. Outside, rain finally fell, pattering on the roof. I used my phone's flashlight, checked the breaker box in the kitchen. All switches were on, the power wasn't coming back. I sat in the living room, knife in hand, until 2:00 a.m. The whispers didn't stop. They grew louder, coming through the floor, the walls, like the house itself was speaking. At 2:17 a.m., I heard footsteps again, heavy and deliberate, pacing the basement. I recorded another clip, my voice shaking as I narrated. The footsteps stopped, but the whispers didn't. They followed me upstairs, faint but persistent, even in the bedroom. I locked the door, pushed the dresser against it, and sat on the bed, knife clutched tight. The rain stopped at 4:00 a.m., and so did the whispers. I didn't sleep. At 6:30 a.m., Sunday, April 7, the power was back. I checked the basement door, unlocked, though I'd locked it the night before. I didn't go down. I grabbed my bag, checked the recordings, and left. The driveway was muddy, my tires slipping as I sped away. Back in Columbus, I listened to the clips. The voices were clearer than I remembered, the child's help cutting through the static. I uploaded the files to a cloud drive, time-stamped and labeled. I emailed Diane again, no response. I called Verbo, filed a complaint. They said the host was unreachable and refunded my stay. I couldn't let it go. I contacted the Ross County Historical Society. A volunteer, Margaret, confirmed the Harper family's story. She added something new. Clara, the surviving daughter, died in 1910, aged 19, in the house. Official cause was pneumonia, but rumors said she was found in the basement, clutching a candle with scratches on her arms. Margaret didn't believe in ghosts, but she said the house had a reputation. Locals called it the Whispering Place. I found a Reddit thread about Chillicothe hauntings. A user, Ohio Ghost Hunter, posted in 2020 about staying in a farmhouse on Harper Road. They heard whispers, saw the basement door open on its own, and left after one night. The account was deleted when I checked again. In May 2024, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of the basement, taken from the staircase, showing the boxes and the light bulb. No message, just the image, time-stamped May 3, 2024, 1:12 a.m. I traced the number. It was registered to a Diane Miller in Chillicothe, but the line was disconnected. I drove to Chillicothe, found Diane's office, a small realty firm. The receptionist said Diane retired in January 2024 and moved to Florida. I showed her the photo. She recognized the basement, said the house was sold in March to a developer. It was empty now, slated for renovation. I went back to the house, against my better judgment. It was June 15, 2024, a sunny day, nothing like that rainy weekend. The porch was the same, the paint still peeling. The door was locked, but I peered through the window. The furniture was gone, the floors bare. I walked around back, found the basement access, a pair of storm doors. They were padlocked, but the chain was loose. I didn't go in. As I turned to leave, I heard it. A whisper, faint, from the storm doors. Stay. I ran to my car, didn't look back. I still have the recordings, the photo, the text. I don't play them anymore. My wife thinks I'm paranoid, says it was the house, the isolation. I don't tell her about the dreams. Every few nights, I'm back in the basement, the light bulb swinging, voices all around. I wake up checking my phone, my locks. I quit teaching, took a remote job, moved to a new apartment. But the whispers follow me. Not loud, not clear, but there. In the walls, in the dark, in the quiet. Last week, October 2024, I got a package. No return address, postmarked Chillicothe. Inside was a key, small and brass, with a tag, Harper House. I locked it in a safe, but I haven't slept since. Every night I hear it, a whisper, soft and close. Stay. And sometimes, fainter, help. I don't know what's in that basement. I don't want to know. But I can't shake the feeling it's not done with me. Footsteps echo in dead woods. Footsteps followed me. I was alone. In the dead woods of northern Michigan, something walked behind me. It wasn't human. My name is Daniel Pierce, and this is the story of the camping trip in October 2024 that I'll never escape. It was Friday, October 11, 2024, around 2:00 p.m. when I left Traverse City. The sky was a crisp blue, the kind you only get in fall, with leaves turning red and gold. I was headed to the Manistee National Forest, a sprawling wilderness about an hour south, for a solo camping trip. I'm a freelance photographer, 32 years old, and I'd been feeling stuck, churning out wedding photos and real estate shots. My girlfriend, Megan, was on a work trip in Chicago, and I needed to clear my head. A weekend in the woods, just me, my tent, and my Nikon, sounded perfect. I'd booked a spot at a primitive campsite through the Forest Service, a clearing called Pine Hollow, deep in the forest. The ranger's email warned about bears and said to stay on marked trails. I'd camped before, so I wasn't worried. The drive was peaceful, my pickup truck rattling along M55 past orchards and small towns. By 3:30 p.m., I reached the trailhead, a gravel lot with a faded sign. Pine Hollow, 2.3 miles. I parked, slung my backpack on, and locked the truck. The air was cool, maybe 50 degrees, with a breeze that carried the smell of pine and damp earth. The trail was narrow, marked by orange blazes on trees, winding through oaks and maples. My boots crunched on leaves, the only sound besides the occasional chirp of a bird. The forest was alive, but quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you feel small. I reached Pine Hollow by 4:45 p.m. The clearing was small, maybe 30 feet across, ringed by tall pines. A fire pit sat in the center, blackened from years of use, and a log bench was nearby. No one else was there. I set up my tent, a green, two-person REI model, and gathered wood for a fire. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky orange, so I worked fast. By 5:30 p.m., I had a fire going, the flames crackling as I heated a can of chili on a portable stove. I sat on the bench, ate and sipped a Bell's Two-Hearted Ale, a Michigan staple. The forest darkened, the trees swallowing the last light. My phone had no signal, but I wasn't here to scroll. I pulled out my camera, snapped a few shots of the fire, and settled in. At 7:12 p.m., I heard the first footsteps. They were faint, a soft crunch of leaves, maybe 20 yards behind my tent. I froze, my spoon halfway to my mouth. The fire popped, sending sparks upward, but the sound wasn't from the wood. It was rhythmic, deliberate, like someone walking. I set the chili down, grabbed my flashlight, and stood. The beam cut through the dark, catching tree trunks and underbrush. Nothing moved. No eyes glinted, no shapes stirred. Bears don't walk like that, I thought. Too steady, too slow. I called out, "Hello? Anyone there?" My voice echoed, then died. Silence. I sat back down, heart thumping, and told myself it was a deer, maybe a raccoon. But my eyes kept darting to the trees. 10 minutes later, it happened again. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Closer now, maybe 15 yards, circling the clearing. I swung the flashlight, my hand unsteady. The light caught a low branch, swaying slightly, but no wind was blowing. I grabbed my knife, a 4-inch blade I kept for cutting rope, and stood by the fire. "Who's there?" I shouted. No answer. The footsteps stopped. I waited, the fire's heat on my back, the cold air biting my face, nothing. I added more wood to the fire, the flames flaring high, and sat with the knife in my lap. I didn't eat the rest of the chili. By 9:00 p.m., I was in my tent, the fire still burning outside. I zipped the door, locked it with a carabiner, and lay in my sleeping bag, flashlight on, knife beside me. The forest was silent, no owls, no wind. Then, at 9:43 p.m., the footsteps came back. Loud, heavy, just outside the clearing. Crunch, crunch, pause. Crunch, crunch, pause. Like something pacing, testing the edge of the light. I held my breath, my phone recording audio, time-stamped October 11, 2024, 9:44 p.m. The steps circled, never crossing into the clearing for maybe 5 minutes. Then they stopped. I played the recording. The footsteps were clear, too heavy for an animal, too measured for a stumble. And there was something else. Faint, like a low hum, almost a voice, but no words. I didn't sleep. I sat up, flashlight aimed at the tent door, listening. At 11:17 p.m., the footsteps returned, closer, maybe 10 feet from the tent. I unzipped the door, knife in hand, and shone the light. The fire was low, casting weak shadows, but the clearing was empty. I checked the ground. No tracks, no broken branches. I rebuilt the fire, my hands shaking, and stayed outside, sitting on the bench. The footsteps didn't come again that night, but I felt watched. The air was heavy, like eyes pressing on my back. Dawn broke at 6:50 a.m., gray and cold. I packed my tent, doused the fire, and hiked out. The trail felt longer, the trees tighter, but I didn't hear anything. At the truck, I checked my phone. The audio file was there, the footsteps clear as day. Back in Traverse City, I couldn't shake it. The recording sat on my phone, proof something happened. On Monday, October 14, I emailed the Forest Service, attaching the audio. I asked if anyone had reported strange activity at Pine Hollow. The ranger, Tom Brennan, replied Tuesday, "No reports of anything unusual, probably wildlife. Stay safe." I didn't buy it. Wildlife doesn't pace like that. I posted on a Michigan camping forum, vague to avoid sounding unhinged. A user, Up North Woods, messaged me. They'd camped at Pine Hollow in 2019, heard footsteps, and found scratches on their cooler, like claw marks, but no animal tracks. Their account was deleted 2 days later. I dug deeper. The Manistee National Forest has a history. A 1978 article in the Cadillac Evening News reported a hiker, Robert Klein, missing near Pine Hollow. His backpack was found, torn, but no body. A 1995 Forest Service log, digitized online, mentioned unexplained noises reported by campers in the area, dismissed as wind. I found a blog by a local historian, Ellen Carter, about Ojibwe legends in Manistee. She wrote about a spirit called the Wendigo, a creature that stalks the woods, mimicking human steps to lure prey. She didn't mention Pine Hollow, but the description stuck with me. Tall, thin, always hungry, drawn to the lonely. I went back to Pine Hollow on October 19, a week later. Stupid, maybe, but I needed answers. I brought a trail camera, the kind hunters use, and set it up facing the clearing, motion activated. I camped again, same spot, fire bigger this time. The footsteps started at 6 p.m., circling, louder, closer. I recorded video on my phone, panning the trees, time-stamped October 19, 2024, 7 p.m. The fire flared, like something disturbed the air, but I saw nothing. The steps stopped at 15 p.m. I stayed awake, knife in hand, until dawn. When I checked the trail camera, it had triggered at 9 p.m. The image showed the clearing, the fire, my tent, and in the background, just beyond the light, a shape, tall, thin, blurred, like it moved too fast. No face, no details, just a shadow with legs. I downloaded the file, my stomach churning, and left. I didn't tell Megan. She'd think I was losing it. But I showed the photo to a friend, Jake, who hunts in Manistee. He said it looked like a tree, maybe a deer, but his voice was tight. I contacted Ellen Carter, the historian. She was skeptical, but said the Wendigo legend warned against camping alone in certain woods. She mentioned Pine Hollow had a reputation among locals. Hunters avoided it. I checked the Forest Service records again. A 2003 incident report, buried in an archive, described a camper hearing human-like steps and finding scratches on their tent. No explanation. In November 2024, I got a voicemail from an unknown number, time-stamped November 3, 2024, 1:22 a.m. Static, then a sound like footsteps on leaves and a hum, low and guttural. It lasted 15 seconds. I traced the number. It was a payphone at a gas station near the trailhead, out of service since 2010. I didn't call back. I posted the trail camera photo on a paranormal subreddit. A user, Michigan Shadow, commented that they'd seen a similar shape in Manistee in 2017. Their account was gone the next day. I stopped camping. I sold my tent, my stove, but kept the camera, the recordings, the photo. I don't sleep well. At night, I hear footsteps, faint, outside my apartment. I check the windows, the locks, nothing's there. But last month, December 2024, I got a package, postmarked Manistee, no return address. Inside was a single leaf, dried and red, with 3 scratches across it, like claws. I burned it, but the smell lingered, like pine and something rotten. I don't know what followed me in those woods, a spirit, a creature, or just my mind breaking. But I know what I heard. Footsteps echoing in a forest that felt dead. Stranger knocks during midnight storm. A stranger knocked. I didn't answer. During a midnight storm in rural Kentucky, someone stood at my door. They weren't alone. My name is Lucas Bennett, and this is the story of the night in February 2025 that haunts me still. It was Friday, February 7, 2025, around 4:00 p.m., when I arrived at a rental cabin just outside Harlan, a small coal town in southeastern Kentucky. The sky was already dark, heavy with clouds that promised a storm. I'm a 29-year-old mechanic from Lexington, and I'd been working overtime for weeks fixing trucks at a shop off I-64. My best friend Corey was supposed to come, but he bailed last minute for a family thing. I didn't mind. A weekend alone, fishing in the Cumberland River, sounded like the reset I needed. The cabin, booked through a local site called Harlan Hideaways, was a one-room deal, maybe 400 square feet, with a wood stove, a single bed, and a window overlooking a dirt road. The host, a guy named Roy Tucker, left a key in a lockbox and a note, "Storm coming, keep the door locked." I figured he meant for security, Harlan being a quiet town but not without its troubles. The drive from Lexington took 2 hours, winding through the Appalachian Hills on Route 421. The radio faded to static as I climbed higher, the pines closing in. By 6:00 p.m., I parked my F-150 beside the cabin, the gravel crunching under my tires. The air was damp, smelling of rain and coal dust, and the temperature was dropping fast, maybe 35 degrees. I grabbed my duffel, fishing gear, and a cooler with Yuengling beer, a Kentucky staple. Inside, the cabin was warm, the wood stove already lit, embers glowing. The walls were pine, scarred with knots, and the floor creaked under my boots. A lantern sat on a small table next to a radio that only picked up AM gospel stations. I locked the door, slid the bolt, and checked the window. Secure. Outside, the dirt road vanished into the trees, the river a faint shimmer beyond. I spent the evening unpacking, sipping a beer, and listening to the radio's fuzzy hymns. The storm hit at 8:30 p.m., rain pelting the tin roof, wind howling through the hills. I added logs to the stove, the fire casting long shadows on the walls. I wasn't worried. Storms were common here, and the cabin felt solid. I sat on the bed, scrolling through my phone, but the signal was gone, the bars replaced by no service. I switched to a paperback, a Lee Child thriller, and settled in. The rain was steady, a drum beat that drowned out the radio. At 11:47 p.m., I heard the first knock. 3 sharp raps on the door, loud enough to cut through the storm. I froze, the book slipping from my hands. The lantern flickered, though no draft touched it. I waited, my breath shallow. The knocks came again, slower, deliberate, thump, thump, thump. I stood, grabbed a tire iron from my tool bag, and moved to the window. The glass was streaked with rain, but I could see the porch, lit by a weak bulb. No one was there. The dirt road was empty, the trees bending in the wind. I checked the door. Locked, the bolt unmoved. "Who's out there?" I called, my voice steady but loud. No answer, just the rain and a low rumble of thunder. I told myself it was a branch, maybe debris from the storm hitting the door, but the knocks were too even, too human. I sat back down, tire iron across my lap, eyes on the door. At 12:03 a.m., it happened again. 5 knocks this time, faster, urgent. I gripped the iron, my knuckles white, and crept to the window. Nothing. No shapes, no lights, just the storm raging outside. I checked my phone, recorded a quick audio clip, time-stamped February 8, 2025, 12:04 a.m. The knocks stopped, but as I played the recording, I heard something else. A voice, faint, muffled by the rain, saying, "Let me in." My stomach twisted. I hadn't heard it live, only on the recording. I double-checked the locks, the window, even the stove's flue. Everything was secure, the cabin was a fortress, but I felt trapped. The storm grew worse, lightning flashing every few minutes, thunder shaking the walls. At 1:22 a.m., the knocks returned, now a steady rhythm like a heartbeat. Thump, 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 thump. I didn't move. I sat on the bed, tire iron in hand, staring at the door. The lantern dimmed, then flared, casting a shadow on the wall. It wasn't mine. It was tall, thin, with arms too long, moving when I didn't. I swung the lantern, the shadow vanishing. My heart pounded, my mouth dry. I recorded another clip, my voice shaking as I described the shadow, the knocks. The timestamp read 1:24 a.m. When I played it back, the voice was there again, clearer. Let us in. Us. Not me. Us. I didn't sleep. I stayed awake, tire iron clutched tight, listening. The knocks stopped at 2:00 a.m., but the storm didn't. At 3:17 a.m., I heard footsteps, heavy and wet, circling the cabin. They sloshed through the mud, pausing by the window, then the door. I held my breath, waiting for another knock. None came. The footsteps faded, swallowed by the rain. Dawn broke at 6:45 a.m., the storm easing to a drizzle. I checked the porch. No footprints, no marks, just puddles and scattered leaves, but on the door, carved into the wood, were 3 lines, shallow but precise, like a claw's scratch. They hadn't been there yesterday. I took a photo, time-stamped February 8, 2025, 6:47 a.m., and packed my gear. I was done. I drove to Harlan, found a diner called Coal Dust Cafe, and sat with a coffee. The waitress, a woman named Linda, knew the cabin. She said it was old, built in the 1920s for miners, abandoned after a cave-in killed 6 men in 1931. Locals called it Knock Hollow, said it was bad luck to stay there during storms. I showed her the photo. Her face paled. She'd seen similar marks on her uncle's barn in the 90s after a storm. No explanation, just rumors of mountain spirits. I emailed Roy, the host, attaching the photo and audio files. His reply came Monday, February 10. Storms make noises, scratches from wind, cabin's fine. I didn't respond. Back in Lexington, I couldn't let it go. I searched online. The Harlan County Library had digitized records. A 1931 article in the Harlan Enterprise reported the cave-in, naming the miners, Amos Reed, Caleb Holt, and 4 others. Their bodies were never found, the mine sealed. A 1957 police report mentioned a camper hearing knocks at a cabin on the same road, dismissed as vandalism. I found a Kentucky folklore site run by a professor named Clara Vance. She wrote about Appalachian spirits, entities tied to the land, drawn to storms. They knock, she said, to lure people out. If you answer, you're gone. She didn't mention the cabin, but the description fit. I posted on a Kentucky hiking forum asking about Knock Hollow. A user, Coal Country 91, messaged me. They'd stayed in the cabin in 2020, heard knocks during a rainstorm, and saw a shadow through the window, tall and wrong. They left at dawn, found scratches on their car. Their account was deleted a day later. I checked Harlan Hideaways. The cabin was still listed, with a new review from a guest named Emma, posted February 12, 2025. Cozy, but the knocking was weird. I messaged her. No reply. Her profile was gone by February 15. In March, I got a call from an unknown number, time-stamped March 3, 2025, 2:09 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. The message was static, then a voice, low and wet, saying, "Open the door." It lasted 10 seconds. I traced the number. It was a landline, registered to a Harlan post office, out of service since 2008. I saved the voicemail, didn't call back. I showed it to Corey. He laughed, said it was a prank, but he wouldn't listen to it twice. I drove to Harlan again, March 15, 2025. The cabin was empty, the lockbox still there. I didn't go in. I walked the road, found the river, swollen from spring melt. By the bank, half buried in mud, was a rusted miner's helmet, the kind used in the 30s. I left it, my skin crawling. Back home, I contacted Clara Vance. She said the spirits might be the miners, trapped, angry, tied to the storm's energy. She'd heard of Knock Hollow, said no one local rents it. In April, I got another voicemail, same number, time-stamped April 10, 2025, 1:33 a.m. Static then, we're waiting. I didn't sleep that night. I moved my bed away from the window, started locking my apartment door twice. I quit the forum, deleted my posts. But last week, May 9, 2025, a package arrived, postmarked Harlan, no return address. Inside was a single key, rusted, with a tag, Knock Hollow. I burned the tag, locked the key in a safe. I hear knocks now, faint, at night, even in Lexington. I don't answer. I never will. Doll blinks in dark attic? The doll blinked. I saw it. In the attic of an old Maine house, something stared back at me. It wasn't alive. My name is Nathan Hayes, and this is the story of the weekend in January 2025 that changed how I see the dark. It was Friday, January 10, 2025, around 3:00 p.m., when I pulled up to a 3-story Victorian house in Brunswick, Maine, a coastal town about 30 miles from Portland. The sky was heavy, gray with snow clouds, the air sharp enough to sting my face. I'm a 34-year-old freelance writer, mostly for travel blogs, and I'd been grinding through deadlines all winter. My partner, Emily, was in Boston for a conference, and I needed a quiet place to finish a piece on New England history. The house, rented through Airbnb, was a 19th century relic, with gabled windows, peeling green paint, and an attic listed as storage only. The host, Margaret Ellis, a retired librarian, left a key under a flower pot and a note. "Stay out of the attic, it's cluttered." I figured she meant it was a mess, maybe unsafe. Old houses have rules. The drive from Portland took 40 minutes, along Route 1, past frozen marshes and lobster shacks closed for the season. My Subaru crunched over the snowy driveway, the house looming like a forgotten painting. It was 10 degrees outside, the kind of cold that makes your boots squeak. I grabbed my backpack, laptop, and a bag of groceries: coffee, bread, a 6-pack of Allagash White, a Maine staple. Inside, the house smelled of wax and old books. The foyer had a creaky staircase, a chandelier missing half its crystals, and wallpaper curling at the edges. The living room was cozy, with a brick fireplace, a sagging couch, and a coffee table piled with National Geographic magazines from the 80s. I locked the front door, checked the back, and dropped my stuff in the second-floor bedroom. The bed had a brass frame, the quilt thick but faded. A window overlooked the backyard, where a bare oak stood alone, its branches clawing the sky. I spent the first hour settling in. The kitchen had a gas stove and a kettle that whistled like a scream. The dining room had a long table, 8 chairs, and a portrait of a stern woman in a black dress, probably from the 1800s. The attic door was on the 3rd floor, a narrow panel with a brass knob, locked, as Margaret's note implied. I didn't try it. I lit the fireplace, the logs catching fast, and set up my laptop on the dining table. The Wi-Fi was weak, but my phone had a signal, so I tethered it and started writing. The house was quiet, save for the fire's crackle and the occasional groan of the pipes. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and steady, blanketing the yard. At 6:18 p.m., I heard a thump. It came from above, sharp, like something heavy falling. I paused, my fingers on the keyboard. Old houses shift, I told myself, especially in winter. Ice on the roof, maybe. I kept writing, but 10 minutes later, another thump, softer, followed by a faint scrape like wood on wood. I stood, grabbed my phone, and climbed to the 3rd floor. The attic door was still locked, the knob cold under my hand. I pressed my ear to the wood. Nothing. Just the wind outside whistling through the eaves. I laughed, a nervous huff, and went back downstairs. But I couldn't focus. The house felt different, like it was watching. I moved my laptop to the living room, closer to the fire. At 8:47 p.m., I heard it. A click, soft but clear, from the attic. Not a thump, but deliberate, like a latch opening. I froze, my beer halfway to my lips. The fire popped, but the sound wasn't from the logs. I grabbed a poker from the fireplace, its iron heavy, and went back to the third floor. The attic door was ajar, just an inch, the lock unlatched. My stomach dropped. I'd checked it hours ago, locked tight. I pushed the door open, phone flashlight on, and shone the beam up a narrow staircase. Dust motes floated in the light, the air thick with mildew. "Hello?" I called. My voice echoed, unanswered. I climbed, the steps creaking, and reached the attic. It was a low, cramped space, maybe 20 by 30 feet, with slanted beams and a single dormer window frosted over. Boxes lined one wall, labeled Christmas and clothes, next to a steamer trunk, rusted shut. A rocking chair sat in the corner, its cushion torn. And there, on a small table, was the doll. Porcelain, maybe 18 inches tall, with a cracked face, blue glass eyes, and a faded pink dress. Its hair was matted, blonde curls tangled with cobwebs. I don't like dolls, nobody does, really, but this one felt wrong. Its eyes caught the flashlight, glinting like they were alive. I stepped closer, the floor groaning. The doll's head was tilted, like it was watching me. I shook it off, told myself I was tired, and turned to leave. That's when I saw it. The doll blinked. A slow, deliberate close of its eyelids, then open again. I stumbled back, the poker slipping from my hand, clanging on the floor. I ran downstairs, slammed the attic door, and wedged a chair under the knob. My heart pounded, my breath fogging in the cold hallway. I checked my Phonono video, no proof, just my word. I recorded a voice memo, time-stamped January 10, 2025, 8:53 p.m., describing the doll, the blink, my voice shaking. I sat by the fire, poker in hand, eyes on the staircase. The house was silent, the snow piling outside. At 10:22 p.m., I heard footsteps, light but steady, from the attic. Tap, 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 like small shoes on wood. I gripped the poker, my knuckles white. The steps stopped, then started again, closer at the attic door. I checked the chair. Still in place, the door shut. The footsteps faded at 10:30 p.m. I didn't sleep. I stayed in the living room, fire roaring, poker across my lap, at 1:17 a.m. A new sound, camea, soft hum, like a child's lullaby, from the third floor. It lasted maybe 20 seconds, then stopped. I recorded another memo, time-stamped January 11, 2025, 1:18 a.m. When I played it back, the hum was there, clear, with a faint giggle at the end. My skin crawled. I checked the locks, front and back, and the windows, all secure. The snow was heavy now, a foot deep, the road invisible. I was stuck. Dawn broke at 7:10 a.m., gray and dim. I checked the attic door. The chair was moved, just an inch, the knob turned slightly. I didn't open it. I packed my bag, ready to leave, but checked the attic one last time, poker in hand. The doll was still on the table, but its head was turned, facing the door, not the window. I took a photo, time-stamped January 11, 2025, 7:14 a.m., and ran. The driveway was a slog, my car barely moving through the snow, but I made it to Brunswick by 8:00 a.m. I stopped at a diner, the Scarlet Tide, and asked the server, a guy named Tom, about the house. He knew it, said it was the old Carver place, owned by a family who lost a daughter, Eliza, in 1903. She was 8, died of fever in the attic, where they kept her during quarantine. The doll was hers, he said, a family heirloom, never moved. Locals avoided the house, called it Eliza's place. I showed him the photo. He flinched, said the doll's eyes were wrong, always had been. I emailed Margaret attaching the photo and memos. Her reply came Monday, January 13. Attics locked for a reason, no refunds. I didn't argue. Back in Portland, I dug into the house's history. The Brunswick Historical Society had records. The Carver family, Henry, Abigail, and Eliza, lived there from 1890 to 1905. Eliza died in March 1903, her death certificate listing fever unspecified. A 1904 newspaper clipping mentioned strange noises in the house after her death, dismissed as grief. A 1978 police report noted a tenant hearing child's footsteps in the attic, no cause found. I found a Maine paranormal blog run by a woman named Judith Pike. She wrote about haunted objects, including a doll in Brunswick that moved on its own. No address, but the description matched: porcelain, blue eyes, pink dress. I posted on a Maine history forum asking about the Carver house. A user, Coastal Ghost, messaged me. They'd rented the house in 2021, heard footsteps, saw the doll's head turn overnight. They left after one night, found scratches on their suitcase. Their account was deleted 2 days later. I checked Airbnb. The house was still listed, with a review from a guest named Claire posted January 15, 2025. Charming, but the attic's creepy. I messaged her, no reply. Her profile was gone by January 18. In February, I got a text from an unknown number, time-stamped February 3, 2025, 2:44 a.m. It was a photo of the attic, the doll on the table, its eyes wide, head tilted toward the camera, no message, just the image. I traced the number. It was a landline, registered to a Brunswick library, out of service since 2012. I didn't respond. I showed the photo to Emily. She said it was a prank, but her hands shook. I didn't tell her about the dreamsme in the attic, the doll's eyes following, its giggle echoing. I drove to Brunswick, February 20, 2025. The house was empty, the Airbnb listing gone. I knocked, no answer. The backyard oak had fresh scratches on its bark, 3 lines like claws. I contacted Judith Pike. She said the doll might be a vessel tied to Eliza's spirit, restless, angry. She'd heard of the Carver house, said no one stayed long. I found a 2001 property record. Margaret Ellis bought the house from a Carver descendant who left Maine after a fire in the attic. No cause listed. In March, I got another text, same number, time-stamped March 10, 2025, 1:19 a.m. Another photo, the doll closer, its cracked face filling the frame. I moved, left Portland, took a job in Vermont. But the dreams followed. Last week, May 9, 2025, a package arrived, postmarked Brunswick, no return address. Inside was a porcelain finger, broken, with a note, "Eliza sees you." I burned the note, buried the finger. I hear giggles now, faint, at night, in my new place. I don't look in mirrors. I don't trust my reflection. Phone rings with no caller. The phone rang. No one called. In a quiet Oregon farmhouse, a voice spoke through the line. It knew my name. My name is Caleb Morrow, and this is the story of the weekend in December 2024 that I can't unhear. It was Friday, December 6, 2024, around 2:00 p.m., when I drove up to a sprawling farmhouse just outside McMinnville, Oregon, a small wine country town in Yamhill County. The sky was overcast, the air damp with the promise of rain, typical for a Pacific Northwest winter. I'm a 31-year-old software developer from Salem, and I'd been drowning in code for a startup that was bleeding money. My fiancée, Rachel, was visiting her parents in Eugene, and I needed a break from screens. The farmhouse, booked through a local rental site called Willamette Getaways, was a century-old two-story with a wraparound porch, red shutters, and a barn that leaned slightly to the left. The host, Evelyn Porter, a vineyard owner, left a key in a tin mailbox and a note, "Unplug the phone if it bothers you. It's old." I didn't think twice. Old houses have quirks. The drive from Salem took an hour, along Highway 22, past vineyards and rolling hills dotted with Douglas firs. My Toyota Camry bounced over the gravel driveway, the farmhouse standing alone against a backdrop of bare oaks. It was 40 degrees, the kind of wet cold that seeps into your bones. I grabbed my duffel bag, a laptop I swore I wouldn't open, and a grocery sack with coffee, bread, and a six-pack of Deschutes Black Butte Porter, an Oregon classic. Inside, the house smelled of cedar and dust. The living room had a stone fireplace, a plaid sofa, and a coffee table with claw marks from some long-gone cat. A rotary phone, black and heavy, sat on a side table, its cord snaking to the wall. I locked the front door, checked the back, and dropped my bag in the upstairs bedroom. The bed had a wrought iron frame, the quilt patched but warm. A window faced the barn, its silhouette stark against the gray sky. I spent the afternoon settling in. The kitchen had a wood-burning stove and a fridge that hummed like a distant engine. The dining room had a long oak table and a chandelier with one burned-out bulb. I lit the fireplace, the logs crackling, and sat on the sofa with a beer, flipping through a stack of old farmers' almanacs from the 90s. The house was quiet, save for the fire and the occasional creak of the floorboards. My phone had 2 bars, enough to text Rachel I'd arrived, but I turned it off to disconnect. The rotary phone caught my eye, its dial scratched, the receiver heavier than it looked. I lifted it, heard a faint dial tone, and hung up. No need for that relic. At 5:47 p.m., the phone rang, a shrill, jarring trill that cut through the silence. I jumped, the beer can denting in my grip. The fire flickered, though no wind stirred. I stood, walked to the side table, and stared at the phone. It rang 5 times, then stopped. I checked my cell no signal now, the bar's gone. I lifted the receiver, heard nothing but static, and hung up. Old wiring, I thought, or maybe a glitch. I sat back down, but my eyes kept drifting to the phone. At 3 p.m., it rang again. 3 rings, sharp and insistent. I grabbed it, said, "Hello?" Static, then a click, like someone hung up. I unplugged the cord from the wall, the prongs rusted but intact, and set the phone back on the table. Problem solved. I moved to the kitchen, made a sandwich peanut butter on rye and ate by the fire. Rain started at 7:30 p.m., a soft patter on the roof, the barn creaking in the wind. At 8:19 p.m., the phone rang again. My heart stopped. It was unplugged, the cord coiled on the table. The trill was louder, echoing through the house. I ran to the living room, the poker from the fireplace in my hand. The phone sat still, its bell ringing 5 times, then silence. I checked the cord, disconnected, no power. My hands shook as I recorded a voice memo on my phone, time-stamped December 6, 2024, 8:20 p.m., describing the rings, my voice tight. I plugged the phone back in, lifted the receiver. Static, then a voice, faint and raspy like it came from far away. "Caleb." I dropped the receiver, the clatter, loud in the quiet house. It knew my name. I unplugged the phone again, wrapped the cord around it, and shoved it in a drawer